He is Todd Knight with Ouachita Baptist. He is their head football coach. He's been there a long time, and I've heard a lot about his coaching philosophy, certainly success down there. When I visited Ouachita Baptist last fall of 2022, I saw it. I talked to a lot of people around the program, a lot of players that actually played for Coach Knight. So it's great to have him here on the show today. Hi, Coach Knight. How are you?
Jason, doing good. Good to be with you today, and looking forward to the interview.
Yeah, this will be a good conversation. I think the best way for me, I'm always curious about this when I talk to a coach, is starting with your coaching philosophy. You've been doing this now for almost 30 years. How would you describe your coaching philosophy and the way that you go about doing what you do?
Well, first I would just say that coaching, a lot of us may get into the coaching field early in our career, and there's probably so many things that drive us. But really, when it gets right down to it, and especially as you evolve in coaching, I really feel like it's a calling. I feel like I've been called into the profession, and I feel like early you're so concerned about wins and losses and trying to get established, that sometimes you lose the perspective that you should have. But I think over time, I've realized my calling in the profession and really what it's all about. And when we talk about the philosophy of what we're trying to do with the young men that play in our program, we call it man school. I know it's pretty simplified really in what we're trying to do, but we feel like the total man has, three aspects, and it sounds like a cliche, but it's really not when you think about it. The mental aspect of going to college, getting a degree, the mental aspect of playing ball. I mean, it's challenging to play mentally as well. The physical side of that, trying to get bigger, stronger, faster, where you can play at an elite level. And then we always say the total man, has a spirit. There's a spiritual side to, really what God put us on earth to do, and who he wants us to be. So the mental, the physical, and the spiritual is what we're trying to grow, while we're using the game of football to do that. And of course, I'm biased. I think the game of football probably is the ultimate team sport, the ultimate teacher of what you can do in life, not just on the field, but it teaches so many things about fighting through adversity and things that really relate to your life after football. So many people get so caught up in talking about you know the game and giving everything to the game. Well, you do, and it there's nothing wrong with trying to be the best that you can be in what you do. And I think you take those things that you learn in the game throughout your life, and that could be with the discipline of your faith, the discipline of your job when you leave, the discipline of being a good dad, a good husband, the things that you do for the rest of your life. So the game is a ultimate teacher. And I think God's gifted us with the ability to play and coach and be a small part of that has been a lot of fun.
You said it was a calling as well. You looked at it that way. I would imagine that's how your faith influences and impacts how you go about coaching.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I think that part of who I am, and when I say me, I'm really talking about our staff as well. We got a great group of guys. Any of those guys could be doing this interview right now and talk about their part of our program and where they stand with their faith and how they try to use their faith inside the game. And I hate to say it like this without trying to beat somebody over the head with your Bible. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what we're trying to do is teach a young man how to live through his faith and be able to play and excel at the game as well. So it's a lot of fun to be in this situation and be surrounded by coaches that are like-minded and think about the game in the same way and really want to be great at the game. But we realize that the ultimate goal, life's bigger than football. And we realize that in using the game to go forward with these young guys, and just really what the game did for me as well, is fun to give back.
So tell me about Christ in your life and its importance to you. Maybe when it started, maybe you began your walk, and now kind of where it is today.
Yeah, well, I was raised in a Christian home and became a believer at an early age. I think I was 13, 14 years old when I accepted Christ. And a lot of people talk about that point that you get on your knees or you make that commitment. But for me, that was a starting point. I think it's really a matter of growth from that point forward. And what's happened to me throughout the course of my life, and those, those times and those challenges and things that grow us and grow us closer to our Father. I think that's what it's been about for me. So, that point at 14 years old, and now the point of being in my mid 50s, to grow through that process. I even talked about a while ago, even your perspective of going into the game and why you're in the game changes a little bit. I mean, I knew early that it was a calling, and I knew that it was bigger than football, but the longer I've been in it, in going through the situations that I've been through, I realized that, again, that it's bigger than just the game of football. But yeah, I became a believer at an early age, and that's really been a huge part of my marriage. Me as a father raising my kids, and then trying to raise 110, 120 football players every year as well. Definitely a part of who we are in our football program. And again, I say we because of the coaching staff that we have here and the philosophy that these guys have as well.
We're talking to Todd Knight here on Sports Spectrum from Ouachita Baptist University. He's their head football coach. You mentioned the lessons that football can really parallel in terms of how life comes at you. Unfortunately, those two were kind of intersected with you at the beginning of last season in 2022, because you've had a lot of successes, but it's those moments, those very difficult moments, I think, and the struggles where you persevere, you grow, you learn, but they're not fun to go through when you're going through them. And you had a very difficult moment last year at the beginning of the season with one of your team leaders, Clark Yarbrough, who passed away tragically. Can you kind of share what happened and what that time was like for you as a coach, and kind of feel like uncharted territory, I would imagine, as a coach? You've been doing this a long time, but what was that time like for you, and kind of rallying the troops and trying to just be the leader of a team that was going through such a tragedy?
Yeah, that it's hard to describe. When you lose a player, and especially a player like Clark, it's not something that you get over with. You
Right.
get through it, and it never leaves you. It's a part of who you are. And what was pretty crazy for us, especially Coach Derby, myself, and even my own personal family, we went through this about 23 years ago. We lost a kid by the name of Antoine Edwards my second year as football coach at Ouachita,
Mm.
and a summer kid, strong kid in his faith, really good player, a lot like Clark. So we'd been through this before, but the last time we went through this, it was in the spring, and to do this in the middle of football season was, boy, it was tough. It was tough to know what to say to a team, to know what to say to coaches, to know what to say to Clark's mom, his brothers, and going through all that. I mean, there's nothing else you can do but lean on your faith. And when I, you use that word, lean on your faith, I'm talking about lean on Christ himself, through prayer and through trying to listen to him to try to figure it out. And really, a lot of times he speaks through other people. And I'll give you an example of that, something that happened to us. After Clark's death, I think it was the Monday morning, he passed. He passed on Sunday morning. It may have been Tuesday morning. One of the mothers of our starting running back, TJ Cole, which TJ's an All-American, great player, his mother called me on Tuesday morning. It just so happened she was really good friends with Clark's mom, Maddie. She said, "Coach, what are you doing right this minute?" I said, "Well, I'm sitting here at my desk trying to figure out what to do." And she said, "Well, I had something on my mind and on my heart this morning, and I just wanted to call and tell you what it is. And what that is y'all need to get busy." And I just felt like it was straight from God himself when she told me that. And I walked into the staff meeting and I said, "I think we know what to do. I think we got to go back to work, and we got to honor Clark through that. And more than anything, we got to honor Christ through that." And how do you do that? And that's by picking each other up, encouragement, prayer for each other, and especially for Maddie and the boys. So going through that situation, even that week was, you come out and you're practicing football and you go, "What are we doing? I mean, somebody that means so much to us just passed away. Why are we even doing this? Why are we even practicing football?" And,
Yeah.
as we got started and we got back into the routine, I think we realized that it was the right thing to do, to pick up and carry on. And, Clark left so much. He left a great example of what, how to live the Christian life, a great example of how to play the game and how that intertwines. And, you know, just being as close as we all are to Maddie, his mom, and the things that she shared with us, it's just been incredible. We 2 weeks into that thing after Clark had passed, we loaded the team up on a Friday. We went to Dallas and had the funeral for Clark. The next day we get up and we got to take that same 150 people to Arkansas Tech and play a football game. And you just question yourself when you're going through those things. Why are we doing it? What difference does it make at this point? But after going through that situation, it makes a big difference. And again, Clark's legacy and what he would have expected, and really what God expects us to do is to pick up, lean on him, and really, I hate to say use the situation, but that's really what we do. We try to point to these situations and say, how can we grow? How can we get stronger in our faith? And I truly believe that situations like this, they happen for a reason. And I think guys on our team probably grew for a reason. Guys probably came to know the Lord for a reason. Coaches grew. I mean, the Ouachita community probably grew from this. And you hate it takes such a tragedy sometimes, but that's the way it works. And you can't question those things. You just move through them and try to learn from them and be the best you can be.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because you're a coach who's just grieving, right? You're trying to go through your own grief process, and then you got 100 kids who are exactly that. They're kids. They're 18 to 22-year-olds who are probably in many ways experiencing something like this, I hope, for the first time, and don't know really how to process that themselves. And you kind of alluded to it. Even kids growing in their faith and maybe even getting saved in some cases in the midst of an unfortunate tragedy like this. Can you describe what that was like, seeing those kids and the way that they were grieving, the way that they were responding, the way that they were getting busy, like you said, getting back to being busy and going to be students again and be football players again? Can you kind of describe that time frame? Because I think grieving and the process of grieving is different for everybody, but particularly for young people who lost a friend, who lost a brother, but also being a football team and the brotherhood that's involved in being a part of a really competitive program.
Yeah, you I mean, you hit the nail on the head with a couple of things you just said, and again, just going through this process, and that's what I would call it, a process, because again, it really never ends.
Yeah.
But some of the kids on our football team have lost parents. Some have lost brothers, sisters. I mean, so I'd say 20-30% of the team has been through some type of tragedy that it just kind of mulls up again in their heart. You go to that funeral and all of a sudden it's bigger than just Clark. It's somebody they just lost as well. So it's like they're going back through this again. And I could see guys, I'm just thinking about one kid, I won't call his name, who had lost his dad about 6 to 8 months before. And just watching him, I was worried about some of these guys that had just gone through a tragedy like this. And some of those guys were very helpful with guys that really have not been through anything like this. So, I think, watching the guys lean on each other, watching the guys, especially the guys that are true believers, watch those guys minister to our football team, and our coaching staff do that as well. And just seeing our team come together, I mean, it really was amazing. And naturally, I mean, we could have just as easy lost every game after that happened or won every game. And, it just so happens we did win the games. And, after that funeral, we went to Arkansas Tech, and we probably played without a doubt, played the best game we played all year.
Wow.
And I think just the brotherhood of the team and the memory of Clark and respect for his mom. And again, the guys that are true believers, the respect they have within the faith too. I think we just put all that together and we went and played a really good football game. And what was crazy about it, we played a great game. When the game's over, it wasn't even that big a deal. The game, all of a sudden we were just playing the game because it's fun and it's a game to play. We're fortunate we get to play because saw what can happen. I mean, in just a blink of the eye, you can be gone, and not taking a moment for granted. And I think our team took that mentality that we're going to play one game at a time. We're going to enjoy the brotherhood of the team. We're just going to enjoy being a part of this and know that it could be gone in a second. And I really feel like that mentality probably helped us honestly be a better football team this last year.
Yeah, there's something about tough moments too, and grieving and going through difficult situations that we gravitate towards. If we, like you say, if we sit and we sulk and we're alone, I think more damage can be done in a lot of ways. And that call that you got, I'm still thinking about it, how powerful that was to get busy. I have to imagine you saw, even in the midst of, like you said, this being a process, never forgetting what took place and still working through grief. I'm sure some of your players are still working through the fact that they lost one of their brothers, but getting back to some quote unquote normalcy, getting back to a respite, a place where you can go and just do what you do and have fun for 3-4 hours in the midst of a college football game. I have to imagine you saw that, and maybe that transpired and progressed throughout the rest of that season last year.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. And again, I think the game of football, we sat there and the game of football really showed us that it can be taken from you, and you need to go enjoy that 3 or 4 hours. And then that kind of translates to life as well. I mean, you better enjoy the day. You better make friends. You better tell people you love them, and move throughout each day like that. And I think our guys really had that mentality. And I think especially our senior and junior class that were so close to Clark, that they kind of came in here and grew up together all the way from going through COVID together and not playing a season and all the training and things they did and being disappointed about that. I think all of a sudden those guys, they're probably closer and have a bond that probably other teams that we've had don't have because of the situation they've been through. And you made another point that I'm going to elaborate on. It's so sad sometimes that it takes tragedy to bring us closer. And that, I was convicted about that a little bit as well. That why does it take something like this to have a better prayer life? Why does it take something like this to tell somebody you love them? Why does it take something like this to be a better player, a better coach? And really, when I say I'm talking about God himself wants us to live that life every day, regardless of what we're going through. And sometimes it takes these things to bring us back home, even though we think we're home, but just to be stronger and really live it out.
He is Todd Knight. He's with us here on Sports Spectrum from Ouachita Baptist University. You had a really great year last year. You also had a pretty cool accomplishment after the season was over. In January, you were named president of the American Football Coaches Association, and that's just not just for Division II. That's for all of coaches in college football. It seems to be a really interesting time to coach with NIL, with the transfer protocol. So much evolution and change in the game, and social media, which has been around, but still evolves in that world too. How do you approach your job today? And maybe the better question is, are you approaching your job today any differently than you did 10 years ago, than you did 20 years ago, to the way you are now, especially now that you're the president of, the Coaches Association?
Well, you said 10 years, and it's kind of ironic you said that. I went on this board 12 years ago.
Huh.
Grant Taft was the director of American Football Coaches Association at the time, and I was nominated. Coach Taft called me and went on the board. And this board is an ascending board, even though this is my year to be president. Over time, as you serve, it's a lifetime appointment until you become president. So, since then, Coach Taft is retired. Todd Berry is the director now, and that time of being on the board, I've learned so much about college football and the relationships on the board. I mean, I've been around some incredible people because the way the board works, I mean, every FBS conference has a head coach on the board. Division II has 2 representatives. FCS has 2, and Division III has 2. So it's some incredible coaches, some strong guys in their faith. I'm thinking about guys like Mark Rick, Todd Berry. I mean, guys that have been on that board, David Cutcliffe. And I hate to call names because, I mean, so many of these guys are strong Christian men. But just to name a few of those guys, It's been a lot of fun to be on the board, and I can tell you this: when we lost Clark, the president last year was Craig Bowl from Wyoming. The first thing we got as a team, we get this huge thing from the University of Wyoming, from Craig Bowl. They're praying for us. They're in the midst of playing too. They're praying for us. They sent a big thing of flowers and some other things that we put in Clark's locker. And it's just a reminder of the brotherhood, not only of the game, but the brotherhood of the Christian life. For somebody to tell you they're praying for you from Wyoming all the way to Arkadelphia, Arkansas. I get a text from Mike Norvell at Florida State. They're praying for the team. So
Wow.
it's pretty cool to know these guys are out there and that they are believers, and they're coaching the game every day to help young men grow and do just what we're trying to do at Ouachita. But it's happening in a lot of places, not just OBU, and there's a lot of great coaches in the profession. So it's been fun to be on the board and be a part of that and build relationship with these guys that I would not have known and would not have been able to learn from. But you mentioned the portal and you mentioned NIL. I'll just make a couple of quick comments about that. First of all, the portal really was designed for compliance. It was really for compliance, where guys that needed to transfer were able to have a compliant way that a school could reach out and make contact with you, where you could transfer in situations. The NCAA did not intend for the portal to be this huge transformation that we've had, but it did. There's unintended consequences that happen. So all of a sudden we have a transfer portal and it's gone nuts. And the graduation rate for the transfer portal is not good. I mean, when you look at what's going on, there's something about sticking with it, staying where you are, even if you're a backup, trying to work through that and overcome that. I worry a little bit about what we're teaching right now in college football, and not just football. I mean, the portal is up and running in all sports in college, and I know there's situations where the portal is very positive, so I don't want to be misinterpreted.
Sure.
But also, I think there's something about trying to work through the adverse situation you're in. So I think the portal needs an overhaul, and our goal as coaches is to figure out and recommend ways that we can benefit student athletes and coaches by a better graduation rate, maybe having a sit a year. There's so many ideas out there.
Yeah.
If you're moving up, sit out. If you're moving down, maybe get to play. I mean, so a lot of those things I'm just throwing out there that, we're hoping will happen over the next few years. And again, to help student athletes. And when you look at the scholastic model and you talk about NIL, there's a problem there too.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, one or two guys are making all the money. Nobody else is. It's a team sport. It's not the NFL. So all of a sudden you take the team aspect away and you're talking about individuals when it takes 11 people to get out there on the field. And so there's some negatives to that too. How do you fix it? Well, maybe it's revenue share where everybody gets the same amount of money, or I don't know what it is.
Right.
But I know there's a way to put parameters around it to keep it scholastic and still keep college football in a healthy spot. And I think it's choppy water right now. We got a lot of work to do, and we want to leave the game in really good hands. And for a guy like me that's in my 50s, I don't want to leave it in 10 or 15 years to young coaches and it be a mess, because I feel like in some ways right now, again, I just use the word turbulent water, and I don't want anybody to misinterpret it. I think NIL's bad or portal's bad. I think there's some bad parts to it that we've got to get fixed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's just there's so much uncertainty and it's new, right? Like anything that's new is ruffling feathers a little bit. And, I think through time and through, proper, just proper conversations with the right people, hopefully things will get to the point where it benefits and still is an important thing to do, but not have it kind of go all over the place where it's out of control. Yeah. Like you said, leaving people and leaving coaches down the road with college football in a much better place than it is now, as opposed to a much worse place. I did want to ask you to maybe explain to our audience. I was talking to Chris Babb when I was out there. He was my sort of host in Arkadelphia and took me around town. And he was explaining to me, because I used to work at ESPN. He's like, you got to get the college game day guys to come down here.
Yeah.
This big rivalry game. And, I haven't worked there in 6 years, so I don't have as much pull, Todd, as I did maybe when I was there 6 years ago. But I figured it'd be better coming from you, the coach, to explain what happens in this rivalry game. I'm pretty sure you know which game I'm talking about, and sort of the neat traditions that take place, the closeness and the proximity of the team that you're facing. Just share that, so maybe I can plant a seed here with any of my ESPN buddies that
You
might be
bet.
listening.
Well, the first thing I would say is the game is unbelievable. The Battle of the Ravine with Henderson State and Ouachita, and I say this in a humble way. I don't want you to think I'm tooting my own horn, but I've coached in some big games. I mean, I
Yeah.
coached at UTEP against BYU, against Tennessee, against some great level of competition. At UTEP, the New Mexico State rivalry was huge, and I know Alabama Auburn. I can just go on and on and on about all these great rivalries. But this thing's been, I mean, it was the late 1800s when this thing started. There's only about a 30-foot highway that separates the two schools.
Yes.
And to live here year round, I mean, I can't go to church without somebody asking me about the Battle Ravine. I can't go to the grocery store without somebody asking me, "Hey, what's it look like? How's it looking?" Or we're going to get you next year, or whatever it is. My kids growing up here and going to school, and even some of their elementary school teachers that may have went to Henderson, giving them a hard time. I mean, it's a tough road, but the game is incredible. I mean, the kids pretty much all know each other, and we're in the same community. In fact, our team doctor, Dr. Cluck, does a Bible study on Sunday nights called Chiseled, and he invites the Henderson football team, the Ouachita football team, and there's about 15 or 20 guys from each team that go to this Bible study on Sunday night.
Wow.
And study the Bible together, and then it's a fierce rivalry as well. And in some ways it gets out of hand. There's been things that have happened across the street with things that jokes and things that happen. But when the town's not but 10,000 and you play the thing in front of 12 or 15,000, all of a sudden the town is twice as big as it usually is on game day, and the traffic is backed up, and the team that's on the road walks across the street. The highway patrol stops the traffic. All the fans walk across, and you see these FBS games where the teams are walking through hundreds of yards of fans. That's how it is. I mean, it's incredible. You walk 500-600 yards across there to play another thing, and there's two lines all the way across, the band, the cheerleaders. So all the fanfare around the game is about as big as it gets. And then to play the game and to live this game 365 days a year, that's really what you do as a player or coach. I mean, you really could be 0-10 going into that game and win that game, and you probably could run for mayor at that point and be 1-11 if you could win it. And then on the flip side of that, I've got to give Henderson a lot of credit as well. I mean, the doggone championship for the Great American Conference has come to Arkadelphia, I'm thinking 7 or 8 times in our 12-year history.
Wow.
So all of a sudden you got two phenomenal teams that battle, and Scott does a great job over there, heck of a coach over there too. And they've won a lot of conference championships, and it's fun when it comes down to the championship, but it's also fun when the teams have been average, because that game is incredible. And, you having the ESPN background, ESPN did a story on us about 3 or 4 years ago in ESPN magazine. It's pretty cool too to see that. But there's no other atmosphere. I've seen them all. Okay. And I'm telling you right now, ESPN's missing out.
Come on, college game day. We got to get them down there. Arkadelphia, let's go.
Day. I mean, it's an incredible game, and I'd love to see them pick the game up.
That was really well said in how you described it. By the way, last year's game was really close, wasn't it? I'm trying to remember if Chris sent it to me. Maybe it wasn't that game, but wasn't that game down to the wire?
Yeah, we're down 2 touchdowns with 4 minutes and about 30 seconds left in the game, and we come back tied up and then go into overtime, and we win it in overtime. We have to go for a 4th down in overtime.
Oh gosh.
And I'm telling you, I can go back to 2011. We are on the 1 yard line with 5 seconds left, and we thought we scored. Officials said we didn't, so it's still a huge talk in the community, but they beat us in 2011, the last play of the game. my freshman year, I played here. We won the last play of the game back in the 80s.
Hmm.
2008 or 2009, we're down 3 touchdowns in the second half. Julio Pruitt makes top 10 ESPN and has 10 catches, 250 yards. He ended up playing for the Dolphins, and he's coaching here now. But
Wow.
man, I can just go through. We had a 4 overtime game since I've been here with them. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter. You can throw the records out, you can throw the injuries out, you can throw it all out. It's going to be a dogfight, and it's always going to be a good football game.
And you won the game in overtime. I don't think you said that.
We did win the game.
Yeah,
we did win the game. We sure
crazy,
did.
crazy rivalry. I love rivalries like that because as a kid who grew up in the Northeast, I live in Connecticut. I don't know about Arkadelphia, Arkansas, or this Battle of the Ravine until I went down there and got to hang out with the Ouachita Baptist, faithful and hear so much about it. And I'm like, okay, this is a game someday that I got to come back to and witness myself because it sounds like there's nothing like it. So that is the beauty of college football, I think, especially in these smaller towns, to think about. Todd Knight. All right, my last question for you. You've been gracious with your time, and thank you. What are you learning from God today? What's he showing you? Somebody told me when I asked this question that you learn something new every day, because that's the beauty of having a relationship with God. He teaches us something new. Today, as we speak here today, Todd Knight, what's he been teaching you? What's he showing you?
This football season, I mean, we kept just telling each other, hey, just pick your feet up and put them down. You got to keep moving forward, even through the adversity and things that happen. And I think I alluded to it a while ago in the conversation. It's, I've been a little bit convicted that it takes tragedy sometime for me to be as motivated as I should in my Christian walk. And I think just motivation and discipline and really the way I feel about a player. I think those things are the things that probably have really come clear to me is it's not just a football player. That's a person, and that's somebody's child, that you're coaching, and the different things that go on with these guys. I just had a player leave my office right before we got on right here, and just, spending 5 minutes with that young man and talking about academics and talking about playing hard and things that really relate to life. I think those are the things that I realize are most important. And just looking forward to practice today. We're in spring football, and be able to go out there and put your arm around a guy and also coach a guy really hard, to coach hard and get after these guys and teach them about the game. Because again, it refers back to life, but just, not taking things for granted and, trying to love our neighbor, trying to love these kids.
No, that's really well said. He is Todd Knight from Ouachita Baptist. I hope I get to see you in person again someday. I'm sorry I missed you when I was out there last year, but you were in the midst of a season getting ready for that Battle of the Ravine, and having a really good year last year. But hopefully we get to see each other again in person. But either way, appreciate you coming on the show and sharing a little bit about your story and about the coaching journey that you've been on. So thanks for joining us.
You bet. Enjoy being here, and appreciate you covering us and our program.